Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to be travelling down to Basingstoke where I'm going to meet up with Harry from Harry's Salvage and Restoration, and we're going to be doing some turning together. So at the moment I'm in my workshop and I'm cutting and gluing the blank that I'm going to turn with Harry. This is a plywood blank and I've gone for a sort of chevron pattern on it, which I think looks quite nice. I had a bit of a nightmare gluing up this project because I was supposed to glue them in order, so going 1, 2, 3 and 4. On the first 4 pieces that I glued together, I messed it up a little bit, so it ended up going 2, 1, 4, 3. It's about at this point you start to see me realise that I've done it wrong. It ended up not really being that big of an issue, it just meant that the blank was slightly smaller than I originally intended, and when I glued it up it didn't quite line up properly, but it doesn't really matter. It just means that we've got a bit of extra material to remove on the bandsaw later. So at this point the blank is all glued up and is pretty much ready to be turned. All we need to do is flatten it, so we've got a flat reference face to put on the faceplate. And we need to cut it into a circle so we've got less material to remove on the lathe. So now the bowl's on the lathe, Harry started by rough shaping the bowl to get it round so it's easier to turn, and then he starts going in the side with the bowl gouge to start shaping the profile of the bowl. The next step was to cut a tenon in the base of the bowl so we can grip it with the chuck after we spin it round to hollow out the inside. So now the bowl's been turned and sanded, the next step is to start applying the finish on the outside of the bowl. So this is the Chestnut Products cellulose sanding sealer. The blue roll that we used was a little bit flimsy, so as you can see it disintegrated a little bit while Harry was putting it on. On this shot the shutter speed matches up perfectly with the rotation of the bowl, so you get some really cool patterns showing through. Now the outside's been turned, we can take it off the faceplate, flip it round and put it in the chuck before we start hollowing out the inside. So while Harry's hollowing out the inside of this bowl, I've got a quick announcement that I'd like to make. This weekend I'll be attending Maker Central, where on Saturday morning I'll be working on the Chestnut product stand, where I'll be turning some segmented bowls, and on Sunday I'll be working all day over on the Axminster tool stand. So feel free to come over and say hi, it'd be great to meet some of you and talk all about wood turning. It was at this point that it went a little bit wrong. So the plywood that I used was just cheap B&Q plywood, so as Harry was turning, the glue that the manufacturer used to stick the plywood together actually failed, and as you'll see in a second, it didn't end well. Fortunately we were both stood out of the way when it flew off, so neither of us got hurt. Unfortunately that was the end of that bowl. As you may have guessed from how long the video has left and the thumbnail, the plywood blank wasn't the only bowl that we made, so while Harry was busy turning that, I started work on a segmented blank. We didn't have any hose clamps or elastic bands, so we ended up sticking the segments to a piece of tape and then rolling it up to clamp them while the glue dried. This bowl was made with 3 segmented rings, and I just had enough time to glue them up before I had to go home. A few days later the glue had dried, and here you can see Harry starting to turn it. After the outside of the bowl's been shaped and sanded, it can be finished. Harry used the Chestnut product cellulose sanding sealer and microcrystalline wax to finish this project. Now the inside and most of the outside of the bowl have been finished, the bowl can be taken off the chuck and flipped round and placed in some button jaws so that the base of the bowl can be finished as well. Even though the original project didn't turn out as we'd hoped, it was great to finally meet Harry in person after knowing him for so long on Instagram, and we had a great couple of days in his workshop doing wood turning. Thanks everyone for watching.